Welcome to the Women Leaders Association Daily Member Podcast, where we believe we go further, faster, and have more fun when we go together. I'm your host, Julianne Kirkland. And in each Daily Member Podcast, we will pick out a great speaker from one of our meetings that we thought you would enjoy. You can access hundreds of recent speakers, book summaries, great articles, and more at no additional charge through your membership portal. If you would like to get involved in a Women Leaders Association mastermind group or find a networking group near you, or if you just need access to the membership portal, simply go to womenleaderspodcast.com to be connected. Now let's tune in for this incredible message.
So I'm Beth Wonson. Here's my long bio up here. I live in Carmichael, California. I'm originally from Boston, so the closer we get to 2:30, the more you'll hear my Boston accent come out probably. People tell me that's true. I've been working with teams and executives and speaking around the country and in parts of Europe since 2005. My story is that I worked at an organization as the director of marketing and sales, but I started there in a very entry-level position. And because I was so good at what I did, I kept getting promoted. And eventually I became the leader of the team that I had been part of for years. The interesting piece was that I was so good at the tasks, but I had no idea how to lead, empower, inspire, and motivate adults. I had not been trained in that at all. So the work was easy for me. The human interactions were tricky, and I really led a lot with my emotions. So if one of my teenage daughters was having a rough morning and I got to work, I was having a rough morning, and my team felt that. If I came out of a really tricky budget meeting and there was a lot of stress around numbers, my team took the brunt of that because I did not understand how to communicate, how to lead, how to dialogue with people without my emotions determining how I show up. So we're going to talk about that in my keynote, which is titled, Grace is in the Space. So we're going to go through some mantras that are really going to help you to communicate with clarity. So communicating with clarity, being heard, hearing others, and self-care. Those are the things we're going to talk about. So when I talk about clear communication, a lot of people say to me, hey, Beth, I took crucial conversations. Hey, Beth, we had a training on this at work. I took the ABCs of communicating. This is when I'm talking about communication. What I'm talking about is communication that is not intended to manipulate people. Communication that's not about getting others to do things, and communication that's not focused on, I'm going to win and you're going to lose something in the process. Unfortunately, we see way too much of this type of communication in business. I bet all of us can think of some examples where you're seeing this now. The leaders who sustain, the leaders who retain employees, the leaders whose teams are loyal to them and working towards a goal don't use that type of communication. These are the mantras that we're going to cover. And at the end, there's going to be a QR code. If you want the presentation, if you want a copy of these mantras, if you want access to my website, which has hundreds of free resources for managers and leaders, you can just follow that QR code and you'll go right to everything. So the first one is be aware of the energy you bring to the room. We're going to talk about that. The only person I can manage is myself. Grace is in the space. That's fascinating. Curiosity is the pathway to empathy. And you can only see the world through your own lens. And this is the most important one. At the end of the day, everybody just wants to be seen and heard. So let's talk about the first one. Be aware of the energy you bring to the room. As I talked about when I was talking about my early part of my career, your emotions really determine the power that your words carry. So words are just words. They have on their own, they have no emotion. That's why we have such a struggle with email communication or text communication, because the other person can put any emotion they want behind that. It's very subjective, right? So being responsible for that emotion is really critically important, but you can't be responsible for it if you're not aware of it. So take a minute. I asked you all to pick a sticker or two. Take a minute and turn to somebody at your table or a couple people and just share what sticker you picked and why. So just go ahead and take a minute and chat about that. Nice. I love that. So what if the hokey pokey is what it's all about? One of my favorite ones, and it's going to help us to talk about the topic we're talking about, because emotional conversation is loaded with all kinds of additional crap. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. So that was a perfect segue to that. What if the hokey pokey is what it's all about? Thank you. The next one is the only person you can manage is yourself. Now, when I say this, particularly to a room full of females, a lot of people make an audible gasp. The happiness of others is not your responsibility. Now, we like other people to be happy. We all want other people to be happy. But happiness is inside work. It's inside work. As managers and leaders, your job is to inspire, empower, to help people use their unique strengths and talents to work towards the goals of your team or your organization, and to hold them accountable. Now, all of those things, when you are doing that and doing that well within an organization, what the research tells us is it leads to job satisfaction. Job satisfaction. And often, job satisfaction leads to happiness, right? But whether that leads to happiness or not for someone is not something you can manage. And I'm going to tell you right now, we're in such a nightmare. We talked about it a minute at this table back here around hiring employees, retaining employees, staffing, and all of that. There's not enough pizza parties. There's not enough Employee of the Month awards. There's not enough wear jeans day. That's a big thing in schools right now. They're trying to do to retain teachers is let them wear jeans to school. I'm like, really? I don't know if that's exactly the nut to be working on. But when you have to give someone direct feedback, or you have to have a challenging conversation with them, or you have to deliver difficult news, how they handle that is their responsibility. You cannot manipulate them. You cannot cajole them to be happy. We have to believe that our employees and the people around us, and even our children and our spouses and our friends, have the capacity and the ability to fully feel their emotions and then bring themselves back to center. But we spend so much time trying to make things okay that we don't have the hard conversations we need to have. We avoid them. The only person you can manage is yourself. Grace is in the space. I love this quote. Almost everything will work again if you unplug it for a few minutes. And that includes you. That includes you. The best thing you can do for the people around you is to take the time. And there's such a self-care movement in this country, everywhere probably. And self-care feels like pressure, right? I saw a quote the other day in a room that we have a model for schools, a navigating challenging dialogue in schools model. And so I saw somebody put up a graphic in a group that I'm in, and it said, stop yelling about self-care to people and instead actually support them, right? Instead, actually support them. Grace is in the space is about a pause, taking a beat, breathing when you feel something that is causing your amygdala to say, holy crap, I need to protect myself. Your amygdala is continuously processing information. It's saying, this is good, this is bad, this is safe, this is unsafe. I am safe, I need to protect myself. It's constantly doing that. And everything it puts in the bucket of not safe, needing protection, bad, your amygdala then sends a message down to your adrenal glands, which I was shocked to find out are down by my kidneys. I'm still amazed by that. And your adrenal glands begin to shoot adrenaline and cortisol through your body. And what they're telling your body to do is to stop sending oxygen-rich blood to the side parts of your brain that are about collaboration, empathy, problem solving, all of those types of things. And they send all the oxygen-rich blood to the fight or flight parts of your brain. I need to get out of here. You are dead to me. Or labeling, attacking, blaming, justifying, all those kinds of things. Back in the day when saber-toothed tiger was going to eat your baby, you needed fight or flight. Now, except for some circumstances, for the most of the time, the things that are triggering us in that way, we call them emotional hotspots in the Navigating Challenging Dialogue program. Most of the time that are activating those emotional hotspots are attacks on your values, risks around your reputation, financial security. Am I enough? Will they figure out I don't know what I'm doing? Vulnerability, all those types of things. Those are the things that cause us to go into that same type of fight or flight pattern. And when we go into that fight or flight pattern, our communication is not optimal. It's not optimal. We're leading with emotion then because we're trying to protect ourselves. So the solution is pretty simple. It's to be aware of the energy that you're feeling, pause, to bring oxygen into your system through your nose, because the reality is your nostrils are specifically designed to bring the right amount of oxygen into your lungs for your body and your capacity. It's a beautiful system that's been created for you. Breathe through your nose, ground your feet on the floor, and listen for the beat of your heart. Feel gratitude for the beat of your heart. It's that simple. It's that simple. That resets your system in a matter of seconds. I do that constantly. I see a number on my caller ID. I'm like, oh man, I don't want to talk to this person. I have to go into a difficult meeting. I facilitate a lot of conflicts in workplaces, conflictual discussions where stress is high and people are emotional. I need to stay centered and balanced. That's Grace's in this space. That's fascinating. That's fascinating. There's so many times when employees come to you, your kid comes to you, your spouse comes to you, your partner comes to you, it doesn't matter who, your mother-in-law, doesn't matter who. And they come to you and they present you with something. And all of a sudden, you feel like you need to solve it. You feel like you need to be the expert. This is what you say. Oh, that's fascinating. Let me know what you think you might do about that. Oh, that's fascinating. What do you think your next step might be? We need to, particularly as leaders who turn into Siri or Alexa, because people are constantly saying, hey, Beth, how do I do this? Hey, Beth, where do I find that? Hey, Beth, how should I proceed here? Hey, Beth. And our brain loves validation that we're the expert. So we end up answering all those questions instead of pausing and saying, oh, I hear you. That's a really interesting question. What do you think you might do? What do you think your next step might be? You need to empower your employees to begin thinking about how they're going to proceed. And your kids. Any of you have teenagers? Next time, yeah. Mine are 37 and 35. So I've survived. You will get over it. Most of the time, they turn into really nice adults. But when they come to you and you're on your last thread and you just want to let them have it for asking one more question, oh, that's so interesting. What do you think you might do about it? Saved me with my daughters. Curiosity is the pathway to empathy. We see all this stuff being written all over the place and in all the fast company and all these empathy is the new thing and leaders need it. And the CEO of Google did a big interview about how he uses empathy. I coach some folks from Google who tell me, yeah, that's fascinating. So, but this is the thing. Empathy is not a one-day workshop. Empathy is not something you apply like sugar in your tea, right? I'll give a little dose of empathy and see what I can get. Empathy comes from being curious, from establishing connection with people, from getting to know them, from asking curious questions of the people around you. People are motivated and empowered by sharing their ideas and knowledge. They just need a little bit of prompting. I'm going to give you the $1 million question to ask someone. Oh, say more about that. That's it. It's the best coaching question in the world. I'm really struggling with this project. Oh, say more about that. I really don't know if I want to stay working here anymore. Oh, tell me more about that. Most of the time, what people bring to you is a top level symptom, and the problem is much deeper. And so it's your job to help them get to what is the problem underneath it. Because if you're running around solving all the symptoms that are being presented, you're going to be so exhausted. It's so tiring. So by asking a simple question, oh, say more about that, you're going to find out what's underneath that. You can only see the world through your own lens. All of us have this kind of a kaleidoscope view of the world. You know what a kaleidoscope is? All these, you look at something and it's all different fractals and colors and all this. We all see the world through our own kaleidoscope. And what's in there that's making it look different to each of us is our values, our culture, our upbringing, our work style, our communication style, any trauma that we've experienced, our personal preferences for things, all get in this kaleidoscope. But we show up in tough dialogue or we show up in communication believing that everybody else sees the world exactly as we do. That of course they're going to have the same solution I'm going to have. It's only logical. Why wouldn't they? Right? But it's through your curiosity and your curious questions that you begin to understand their lens, their perspective. You begin to have that dialogue. It's a very, very interesting perspective when you shift from feeling like you're the expert to being curious and inviting others to share their perspective. You're also modeling that for other people too, right? Because not everybody gets to hear me speak, despite what I wish. Trust is built one conversation at a time, one experience at a time. We live under this myth that you either trust people or you don't. You're either a trusting person or you're not. That is a myth. That is not true. Trust is not black and white. It's categorical and it's based on whatever the situation and circumstances are. So I trust everyone in here that if I went to the restroom, I could leave my purse in the room. I trust you all. Do I trust you to pick my grandson up at daycare? Not yet. No. Do I trust you with my ATM 4-digit code? No, not yet. But I might sometime once we have more experiences and conversations. This is the other piece about trust. We build trust, we build trust, we build trust, and then somebody does something that shakes our trust in them. And so we say, they are untrustworthy. I will never trust them again. What I'm going to encourage you to do instead of that is to backstep to where the last place, the last circumstances you felt trust in them, and show up with them from there for you to recalibrate your trust. But you don't have to throw it out the window. You don't have to, except for in some extreme circumstances you might want to, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about in dialogue and communication. We all know, and we've all probably had the experience where we mess something up at work or somebody messed something up at work and they got labeled as untrustworthy. They no longer got the good assignments. They no longer got invited to the meeting, to the table. And eventually they ended up having to leave. I'm saying, let's have a little more grace with people. Let's help people. I had a client who worked for a big financial firm in San Francisco, and he made $1 million mistake on a client's account. He went home and told his wife, we got to take the kids out of private school. We've got to figure out what we're going to leave. I'm never going to work in this industry again. I have to figure out what I'm going to do for a living. And for the whole weekend, he was totally stressed out because they told him the mistake came visual on Friday, and the partner said they'd meet with him on Monday. On Monday, he met with them and they said, this is what we're going to do. You're going to have a mentor. We're going to cut back on your, what do they call it? Like access. So there's going to be your level of access is going to go lower. You're going to have a mentor who's going to approve every transaction over this amount. And we're going to send you to this training and coaching program. And he was shocked. And they said, this is what we know. You'll never make that same mistake again. If we fire you and we hire someone else, there is no guarantee they will not come in here and make the exact same mistake you made. We're going to invest in you. And he could not believe it. At the end of the day, everybody just wants to be seen and heard. You know, at the beginning of the whole world falling apart, my brother, who's 82, and he's my only living sibling. And he's in Boston still. And he and I see politics through different lenses. And so he would put things on social media, and I would feel myself get triggered. And then I would feel like I needed to argue with him, and he would argue with me. And one day I realized, you know what? He's my only brother. He's the only person that has known me since the day I came into this earth that is still alive and still living. There is so much about our history that I value and that I want in my life, despite this difference. Despite this, he needed to be seen and heard for his opinions. And so I started responding to him on social media saying, I hear you. Can you say more about that? Versus arguing with him. As I began to understand, he's also deaf, so we can't really talk on the phone very well. So as I began to see what his thinking was and understand how he got to that, I realized that he and I value the exact same things. We want a safe world for our children and our grandchildren. We want democracy to work. We both value many of the same things. We just have different pathways to getting there. And he really, at the end of the day, he wanted me to see and hear him. That's what he wanted. And so now our relationship is totally back on track. And he's actually changed his political views. But that wasn't because of me. So I'm thrilled. So as you go through the rest of today, I'm wondering, I'd love to hear from you. Which of these mantras do you think you might practice? Which do you think might be helpful to you?
Hey, my friend, if you enjoyed listening to this podcast, be sure to rate, review, and share your biggest takeaway. And if you're wanting more, you can access hundreds of recent speakers, book summaries, great articles, and more at no additional charge through your membership portal. You can also get involved in a Women Leaders Association mastermind group or a networking group near you. Or if you just need to access your membership portal, simply go to womenleaderspodcast.com to be connected. Because here at Women Leaders Association, we believe we go further, faster, and have more fun when we go together. That's all for today, my friends. Bye for now.